y'all. Welcome to my Flickers of Fear show. Movie we're talking about today, this might be the newest one that I've ever reviewed. But yeah, this is one that I've actually been hearing a lot of buzz about, and I think like one or two of you guys even, requested that I do this one, if I'm remembering correctly. So this is a movie, it actually premiered at Sundance in late January of 2022. Sundance was actually online this year, so it kind of premiered online then. But then it got picked up by Fox Searchlight, and then it premiered on Hulu, which is where I watched it, at the beginning of March 2022. So this has only been out for a couple of months. This movie is called Fresh. Now, as I said, I'd been hearing a lot of buzz about this one, so I have Hulu, and I really, really wanted to get around to watching it. Now, I will say that this movie is really, really difficult to talk about without spoiling it. And I will say, too, that if you want to watch it, it's much better going into it not really knowing what it's about necessarily. It's just much, much better, trust me. Maybe you'll be able to, just from like the one sentence synopsis that's on Hulu, maybe you'll kind of be able to guess like what direction it's going in, but I mean, I kind of got the vibe of like, I thought I knew where it was going, but it was actually like a little bit different to what I thought. So that's all I'm going to say. So I'm just saying that if you want to watch the movie, if you have Hulu or if it's on some other streaming service and you want to hear me talk about it, maybe go watch it first. I'm not going to like spoil anything outright or the end or anything like that, but there is a pretty big shift in tone in the movie, which takes place, at the end of the first act, which sends the movie off in another direction. And obviously I'm probably going to have to say what that is. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to talk about the movie hardly. So just know that going in. This is kind of a spoiler warning. So this movie is actually the directorial debut of a woman named Mimi Cave. And this was written by a woman named Lauren Kahn. Now, there's actually two quite big stars in this. Daisy Edgar-Jones, who's a British actress, although she plays an American in this. She's been in a bunch of stuff, but probably best known for the British miniseries Normal People. And this also has Sebastian Stan in it, probably best known for being Bucky Barnes in the MCU. He was in The Martian as well. And I didn't even realize this while I was watching the fucking movie because he looked so different. But he also played Jeff Galooly in I, Tonya, which we just watched like a week or two ago. And it's like, while I was watching Fresh, I had no idea. I was like, oh yeah, it's the same dude. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, but he looked so different in that I really couldn't tell. Like I said, I've seen, he was in Captain America, Winter Soldier and all that. I've seen some of those, but I didn't remember him from those because I haven't seen all the MCU and it was a long time ago that I saw them, so I didn't really, but yeah, he's like super famous. So I have to say that I like, though, that they kind of used him in a way of this because from what I could gather, he doesn't, I mean, I guess Jeff Galooly was kind of a villain, but he doesn't really play villains, but they actually kind of like used his sort of like natural charm and charisma in service of like a more horror type thing going on. So I will say that. And I also want to say too that the two actors that are in this, the two lead actors, their chemistry with one another is really, really good. And I think that's one of the strengths of this movie, like why it makes it work. Now this movie, okay, I'm going to say, and like I said, this pretty much anything I say about this movie is going to be spoilers. So if you want to watch this movie, it's just better going into it not really knowing what you're getting into. It's much, much better that way. I will say that it's not extremely gory but there is some stuff like later on. It is definitely goes in a horror direction and it is kind of gory, more like kind of gross and uncomfortable than gory, but there is some gore in it. So if you're not down with that, then know that going in, it does go in like a pretty fucked up direction, like in Act 2 and 3, even though it doesn't seem to start out that way. So that's another kind of thing that you probably should know going into it. So interestingly, this movie, it's marketed as pretty much like a horror comedy or like a black comedy, which it is, but I kind of feel like it's more of a horror movie, at least in the second two acts, than it is a comedy. It has some funny shit in it, and some of the situations are like blackly humorous, but I wouldn't call it like an overt comedy. It's much more, Okay, the vibe of this is very much like American Psycho. So if you liked American Psycho, this has like a similar type of thing to it. You know what I mean? It's like the similar type of tone. It's really does kind of go like that. And I'm pretty sure that it's particularly Sebastian Stan. I think he's sort of channeling, Christian Bale in American Psycho. It's not like a copy, but it's like a similar kind of thing that he's doing, a similar kind of character that he's playing. So at the beginning of the movie, it almost, like I said, it almost starts like a rom-com. Not like a zany rom-com, but just kind of like a romantic type of movie, like with some funny stuff in it. So what you have this young woman, and I think this is set in the Pacific Northwest, somewhere like Washington State or something. And her name is Noah. And she's become very disillusioned with this whole dating jazz, especially like all these apps that she's using. And at the beginning, you're kind of seeing her struggles, and I'm sure like most women that have had to be like in the dating pool even before like all the proliferation of dating apps and stuff will recognize a lot of the shit that she's going through, and she's really becoming like disillusioned with it. You know what I mean? It's like at the beginning she's on a date with a guy who's like doesn't seem like a bad looking guy or anything like that, but she knows it's going to be bad because even before they got to the restaurant where he's taking her dinner, he's like, bring cash with you and like all this other kind of stuff. So he's like a little bit tacky. So she's on a date with that guy, and the guy is just kind of like, not mean, but he's just saying all this stuff that's sort of like low-key like denigrating her, like, oh well, women of our parents' generation were so much better, they were so much more feminine, because she's just wearing kind of like a regular sweater or whatever, and he's like, you would look really good in a dress and blah blah blah, and he just gets like dickier and dickier like as the time goes on. And then after dinner she's just like, yeah, she pays for her own food, he takes her leftovers. He's just very, very gauche. And so that date ends, and then she's just kind of like, yeah, not feeling it. I don't really want to see you anymore. And then, of course, he flips out and calls her a stuck-up bitch and everything like that. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's about par for the course. And then they kind of show her going through some more stuff with, somebody on her little dating app or whatever, like sending her a thing with like a picture of their dog. And she's like, oh, what a cute dog, and blah, blah, blah. And then he sends her a dick pic. And I'm just like, yep, again, been there. So, so it's just like, women will relate. So she's just kind of gotten to a point where she's like, you know what, maybe I'm just better off alone. This is just like, I hate all this. It's just too much for me to deal with. She's like, I keep meeting all these fucking losers and I just don't really know what to do. And, maybe I'll just be by myself and it'll be fine. She also has a best friend named Molly, who she says they met. I think she says they met like 7 years before. Like they used to work together, but now like, she works somewhere else or whatever. Now I will say that the character of Molly, I like that they kind of did this. And I think that maybe this was kind of like a subversion of the trope, because at first, when Molly is first introduced, I was like, because the Noah character is a white girl, and I was like, so when Molly's first introduced, I'm like, oh my god, are we having like the sassy black friend trope? Are we doing that, really? But then as the movie goes on, Molly gets a lot more like character depth introduced, and it ends up being like one of the heroes of the piece. So I thought that was kind of like a cool like little subversion, because at first I'm just sitting there going, oh man, this is like, it's sassy black friend cliche, and it's like all over. But it's actually, she ended up being a really, really good character. So I like that they kind of subverted that trope a little bit. So, Molly's kind of like commiserating and all this other kind of stuff. She's like, I'm giving up. This is like too much. And Molly's like, well, I gave up. Molly's bisexual. So she's like, she's dated men in the past, but she's like, yeah, I kind of gave up on that. Dating girls is so much easier. So, they're kind of, as I said, commiserating about that. Now, so one night, after like one particularly disastrous whatever, Noah's like looking in her fridge and she's like, oh shit, I don't have any food in there. So she goes to like some late night grocery store or something. While she's in the produce aisle, just like in the cliche, it's like, oh, you meet people in the grocery store. She meets this actually really cute, charming dude named Steve. And he's, kind of funny, real charming, stuff like that. Not like overtly creepy or weird or anything like that. He seems like respectful of her boundaries and, kind of self-effacing and stuff like that. So she's just kind of like, huh. At first, she's just kind of like real, you know what I mean? As you would be, because she's kind of like gun shy about everything. But after a while, she's like, you know what? Fuck it. we don't, she's like, I didn't even realize that you could meet people in real life anymore because everything is like so, centered around online and dating apps and stuff. And she's like, that's kind of crazy that we just like, met online, and it's insane. So she gives him her number, and he waits a few days, but then he calls her. They go on a date, and they really, really hit it off. I mean, she admits to him, look, I hate this dating thing. I hate this whole, getting to know you period. It's just really not for me. And he seems to feel the same way. So they seem to have like this really deep connection. She also finds out that he seems very financially successful. He's a plastic surgeon. And he says, yeah, I don't just do boob jobs and stuff like that. I also like do reconstructive surgery, like for people that like burn victims and stuff like that. So he seems like the perfect man. And that when somebody seems like the perfect man, then there's going to be some really, really bad shit going on. And indeed, that is what happens in this movie. Even her friend Molly even says she's kind of like, as much as she wants Noah to be happy, one of the first things that kind of like, pings her radar is that the guy doesn't really have a lot of social media. Like he doesn't have Twitter. He's not on Instagram or anything like that. And she's like, that's a little bit sketchy, which yeah, in this day and age, it absolutely is, especially someone who's supposedly like a plastic surgeon. You would think that they would have some kind of social media presence to find clients or whatever. And the fact that he doesn't really have that, her friend thinks that's very, very weird. But Noah's just kind of like, he's just a nice man, and, we're going to see where this goes. You said fuck it, so I'm saying fuck it. So they end up, they have sex, they have, and it seems like a great thing. Now, they've been going out together, I'm not real sure how long it's been. It's not like a hugely long time, but it's been like a few dates and stuff. And then he's like, let's go away for the weekend. She hasn't known him that long, and that seems a little soon. But not so much so that it would immediately be like red flags. Although, again, her friend Molly is just like, wait, now already? Like, where are you going? And all of a sudden, like, you keep me apprised of the whole situation. And she's like, yeah, it'll be fine. And at first, it does seem fine. Like I said, the first probably 35 minutes of this is kind of like a rom-com, okay? But right around the 35, 38 minute mark, it veers wildly into super over the top, like horror territory. Okay. So just know that going in. Interestingly too, and I actually kind of loved this decision. The movie just starts, and I didn't really notice this. The movie just starts without any title card or, cast or anything like that. Once the movie gets to a point where it's going in the horror direction, like 38 minutes in, something like that, then the title comes up. Like the title kind of comes across the back, and then like all the cast and everything. So I think that's the longest time. I don't remember ever seeing a movie that you had to wait 38 minutes like to see the title and stuff. And I was just like, I didn't even notice that it wasn't there at the beginning, because I was just like started to watch the movie and I just like got into it. And then like when they did that, like 35 minutes or 38 minutes in, like the title comes across like the background and then like all the stuff. And I was just kind of like, oh, that was a neat idea, because at that point you knew that it was going in a horror direction. Previously we were having like a rom-com direction. And like I said, this is a horror movie. So the first part of it, which is like a rom-com, you're just kind of the whole time you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop, because something is going to go bad. You just are not entirely sure what it is. And once it goes in a horror direction, one of the things that's really good about this is that once it goes in that direction, everything that this guy said in the rom-com portion of the movie is completely like retextualized, which I think is like really good. So now, if you don't want to know what this dude's fucking secret is, because you knew he had one, then please click off now, because I'm about to tell you. His secret is that he is not only a cannibal, but he also essentially kidnaps women and keeps them prisoner, like keeps them alive for a really long time, so that he can slowly cut hunks of flesh off of them, which he sells to very, very high-end 1%er clients. It's like a small elite group of cannibals the world over, and he's kind of known for his choice cuts of woman meat. So at any given time, he has, 2 or 3 women down in this, because he has this real remote country house, and he has it all set up in the bottom where it's like kind of a, I don't want to say it's a dungeon because that sounds like, you know, a Gothic castle or something. It's modern, but he has like essentially like a dungeon style situation going on in the basement where he keeps these women alive and just cuts portions off of them, like, you know, their leg or part of their butt or something like that, and then like he'll freeze pack everything and like mail it out. So that's basically what his secret is, which sadly Noah finds out to her detriment. And like I said, that's kind of all I want to spoil. That's like the big reveal, but then after that, as I said, it goes way more in a overtly horror direction where, you know, it's her and like the other girls that are trapped in there trying to escape, and also Molly, who suspected something was like sketch or about Steve the whole time, essentially trying to like track her down and find out where she went to. So it's on kind of like, there's a little bit of focus on her and this other guy named Paul, who was an ex-boyfriend of hers, who was a bartender, who actually was the bartender at the bar where Steve and Noah had their first date. So he's kind of like, you know, helping with the search. So there's a little bit of that going on, like her looking for her friend, and then the rest of it's kind of focused on Noah and Steve and like the interaction between them and her trying to figure out how the fuck she's gonna get out of this situation. So like I said, tonally, if you really liked American Psycho, you'd probably really like this as well, because this has like a very, very similar style to it in the sense that it's like very blackly comic, not super zany. And I think that Sebastian Stan's performance, while you can tell that he did like take some inspiration from Christian Bale in American Psycho, it's not like as over the top as that. Sebastian Stan comes across in this, he's actually very, very good in this. He comes across just like a regular charming dude, which in a way kind of like makes him a lot more chilling. I mean, he doesn't really start losing his shit until, you know, more toward the end. He just comes across as not even like cold and calculated, like sociopathic or weird or anything like that. He just comes across almost like a normal dude. And it's really kind of disturbing. So there is like a lot of really disturbing stuff in this, especially when Noah kind of hits on the strategy that she's going to use to maybe like get a leg up on him and get herself out of there, and like the shit that she has to do to sort of facilitate that. So yeah, so this actually is absolutely worth watching. There's, you know, I didn't really have any issues with it. I would have liked, I think, a little bit more done with Molly, because she was such a great character. I mean, she's in it quite a bit, and I did like that they followed her some, like trying to find where her friend went. So there is that. There is one character though that I guess there's one character that I would have liked to spend a little more time with, in the sense that I wanted to explore what her motivations were. And if you've seen the movie, you probably know the character that I'm talking about. It's just that I think that there was like a little bit of like hint around like at what her deal was, but I wish they'd gone a little bit more into that. But overall, I really enjoyed this a lot. It's just, like I said, it was very, very disturbing, and it's really dark, but it's also like kind of funny and kind of fucked up. And it's just like a sort of funny, like blackly humorous examination of like modern dating. You know, just like going the worst possible way that it could absolutely go. But yeah, I mean, I found it really, really entertaining. Like I said, the two leads were fantastic. They really played off each other very well, and just kind of the whole dynamic of like their relationship and their interactions like made this really, really good for me. So like I said, starts out as a rom-com, about 38 minutes in, goes like right for the jugular, right into horror. So like I said, if you like American Psycho, if you like something like that French movie Raw, this was kind of similar to that as well. So anything like in that vein that is more like blackly humorous, but also like kind of twisted and fucked up, if you're into that kind of stuff, then you will probably like this as well. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And that'll do it for this Flickers of Fear. I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.